am Daniel Luis, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today, I have my special guest. He's the author of the fantasy novel of Wizards and Warriors, no other than Mr. Samuel Bornman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lucas, and thank you for having me on your show.
And welcome to Book 101, Mr. Samuel. And can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so as Mr. Lucas said, my name is Samuel Bornman. I am the author of my very first novel titled Of Wizards and Warriors, which is a novel that is for 10 to 15-year-old boys, and I believe that it is a really great novel for them that will help them stand up to all the evils they will face in their lifetime.
So this will be a young adult.
Yes, sir.
That be awesome, Mr. Barnman. What age did you realize that you are good in writing?
So, what made me realize that I wanted to write was reading books and not enjoying the endings and complaining about how they ended. And then my father said, well, if you don't like the ending, you should write your own book um, and put a different ending in it. And so I started writing short stories as a little boy when I was 12 years old, and I've been writing ever since.
That interesting, Mr. Barnman. So, who are your favorite authors that influence you the most?
So C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien. I also like Robert Louis Stevenson. Um, I also like Louis L'Amour. He writes some interesting westerns. And then I would have to say that the Bible is the most influential book on my life and my writing.
Definitely. So, Mr. Barnman, can you share your favorite verse in the Bible?
Yes, for God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, that whoever should believe in him should have eternal life. And
John 3:16,
yes,
people.
sir.
That's my favorite too, people. John 3:16 is the most powerful verse in the Bible. What are your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
My short term goals are to, uh, well, pay for the costs that it costs me to publish this book, and then long term, I want to make a living out of my writing. I have many ideas for many different books, um, and I plan to write many more books specifically for 10 to 15-year-old boys, because I see in especially the Christian world of literature, I see a lack of masculine literature for boys that encourages them to be manly in a God honoring manner and not just in a way that men see as quote unquote biblical. Because many times the Christian church tends to want little boys to act like little girls and sit still in church and be respectful and all that. And those are good things, but little boys aren't made the same way as little girls. And they need different literature to encourage them to be godly men.
Yes, indeed, interesting, Mr. Bornman. But before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening to these countries according to my ranking tops in the last 30 days. In Zambia, I got number 7 on the Apple chart. Pakistan at number 20, Qatar at number 29, Slovenia at number 45, Belgium at number 83, United Republic of Tanzania at number 85, Canada at number 93, and of course Oman at number 33, Chile at number 68, Nigeria at number 69, Egypt at 136, Zimbabwe at 137, Singapore at 154, Cambodia at 161, South Africa at 182, Norway at 185, Belgium and 234, and a lot more. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, like Mr. Samuel Bornman of Wizard and Warriors. How did you craft it?
So I started by uh, working on an assignment for a writing class. I was doing an online writing class that author N.D. Wilson does. And in his class, he gave some assignments, and I started writing a little kid's fairy tale. And it really, I'm much more of an exploratory writer. So I get an idea and I explore it. And as I started exploring this story, it really developed into a short novel. Um, and especially as I was exploring it, I was exploring my own thoughts on several different subjects, magic and the morality of magic, and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. I was also exploring the ideas of transhumanism, um, especially like AI and prosthetics, and what is too far and what is appropriate, and those sort of things in the medical world, as well as the issue that our country, the U.S. deals with in regards to infanticide and abortion. And so that really worked its way into the story, and it became this novel of a young hero uh, setting whose life gets destroyed by an evil wizard's army who is out to conquer the world, and he gets a vision from the light who tells him, "You need to go stop this wizard. This is a job for you." And so, before he even knows how he's going to do it, um, he gets a message that he has to do this job. And then he receives training, he goes on his journey, finds the wizard, and confronts him. Uh, and into that I work all three these three major themes.
Of Wizard and Warriors, A Tale of Enyaw. What behind the title of your debut fantasy novel?
So Enya is the world that that this story happens in, and I I plan to have more books coming out in that series. In fact, I'm currently working on the second novel. I'm about uh, 30,000 words into the second novel, so it's going to be a little longer than the first book. And of Wizards and Warriors, I really wanted the title to and the title cover, the cover image to really let everyone know as soon as they see the book that this is a fantasy work of fiction, especially to captivate young boys' attention. Because when you look at a title that says "Of Wizards and Warriors," it instantly tells you this is a novel about wizards, which means this is fantastical, and warriors, which means there should be lots of sword fights. And this should captivate any young boy's attention and say, that looks interesting. Um, and if you look at the cover page, that image, the on the book cover, there, you got the hero standing there with his axe ready to fight this impressive looking wizard.
What inspired you to write your fantasy novel of Wizards and Warriors?
So what inspired it to be fantasy was just simply the fact that I like fantasy. I like fairy tales. Um, and I, I believe that when you read a fairy tale, you set aside your disbelief of the world, of the story, of the characters, and it really helps disarm people to be willing to explore subjects that may make them uncomfortable. Like many people are uncomfortable with magic, especially in the Christian church. Like, what is appropriate, what is inappropriate in regards to magic, and um, I wanted to. disarm people by saying this is a fantasy story. Let's explore the serious subject of magic. Let's explore the serious subject of infanticide and abortion, as well as transhumanism.
Can you describe the research process behind of wizards and warriors?
So the research process, especially on the transhumanist side, it was um, I listened to I was able to join a live interview of Hugo de Garis, who um, was really influential in the artificial intelligence world a number of years ago, is still an influential voice, but he no longer actively works in uh, the uh, the AI world. I also, and so that was very informative for the AI side. I also read several articles, just browsed the internet looking for stuff. I read my Bible with my family, and I was thinking about these subjects. In regards to infanticide, I've long been a supporter of the pro-life movement. When I say long, I've basically is my entire life. I've always loved being around younger kids, and um, I see it as despicable that anyone would want to get rid of a child before they are born. That really worked its way into my story. And magic, I've been interested in reading about magic and what the Bible has to say on magic and thinking about it my entire life. Um, so so the research process has been, I guess, mostly a lifetime experience.
What challenges did you face while writing of wizards and warriors?
So one of the biggest challenges was editing. The editing process, you have to cut stuff out. You have to change ideas to fit with the flow of the story. Because when you're writing and you're exploring your world, you might add things that later you say that really isn't essential for the story. It's distracting to the main plot. I need to cut this out. I can save it for another book, but not here. So that was challenging, I guess, on a more emotional level. Um, Another challenge would be uh, finding the time to work on the book. Um, but I am a student who studies from home uh, through distance learning, and um, and I help my father on his farm, and so I can find you know a couple hours in the evenings or a couple hours in the early morning or 10 minutes during the day or 15 minutes before we go on a trip somewhere, and I would just write. And so it was challenging to find time, but when you care about a project, you find time to work it in. And especially if you have people in your life who are willing to support that, um, like my father was willing to help me make time, and not call me away from my writing, um, in order to give me the time I needed to finish up this book.
Very well said, Mr. Bornman. What one themes or message you hope readers will take away from of wizards and warriors?
What I want readers to take away from this book is that as little boys, you are not broken because you're not a little girl. You are what God created you to be, and sometimes violence is an appropriate answer. Not all the time, not mostly, but sometimes. Um, and you need to learn when it is appropriate to use violence and when it is inappropriate. Another thing I really want readers to learn is that God can use you even if you're young, even if you're small, even if you think you're weak. And He can use you to do amazing things. So trust God and do the work that is set before you.
Very well said, Mr. Bornman. But before we go on, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our third season with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the best restaurant, our five-star restaurant in downtown Toronto. So please do listen to our latest episode. We talk about saffron, people. Saffron, one of the expensive ingredients in the kitchen. Plus one more. Our books are out, not only one but 10 volumes, people. Food 101 Volume 1 Basics until 10 is all the books that you need. How to create a delicious food, available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So, Mr. Samuel Bornman, of Wizards and Warriors, what is the best highlight?
Best highlight, I would say, is the final battle scene where. So I haven't mentioned my main character. His name is Stout. He's he's gone on this trip. He's faced the wizard. He had a fight with him in the top of his tower, and the wizard flees to the top of his tower and locks a door behind him. Um, and Stout, who's the main protagonist, ends up rescuing his friend Sally, who was captured by this wizard and who he was going to do some experiments on. Um, and they flee this castle, and as they flee this castle, they find a baby that Calculo, the evil wizard, has not gotten to yet. He has stashed it away, and the baby's still alive, and they take the baby and they flee this castle, and then they meet up with their allies, the Knights of Light, and their army, and Calculo's army comes out to face the army of the Knights of Light, and they there's this 3 day long battle where the Knights of Light are losing, and the light himself appears on the first day of battle and is defeated by the Dark Eternals. The Dark Eternals and the Wizard's army are defeating the Knights of Light for 3 days, and then on the evening of the third day, the light reappears on the field of battle from among the dead and summons his celestial army to assist the Knights of Light, and they utterly defeat the Wizard's army and the Dark Eternals. And then the angelic host returns into the heavens along with many of the slain Knights of Light.
Of Wizards and Warriors, is this a series, a trilogy, or a quartet?
So I'm not certain yet how many books will be in the series, but I can think of at least two additional stories. Um, and I have a thick stack of one-page outlines um, for following books. Maybe not in the same series, but I have more stories coming.
Congratulations for your upcoming books. You are most welcome to come back and promote your books, Mr. Samuel Bornman, and your inspiring message for those aspiring writers out there.
So, for aspiring writers out there, um, write about things that you love, things that you're interested in, um, and do the best you can, and accept that it won't be perfect. Um, because I think that many authors want to write the best, the most perfect book. I know I do. I've talked to some other people who they're writing a book and they take 10 years to write a book that could have been published 4 years ago or 6 years ago because they keep finding mistakes, they keep adding things, they keep editing, they keep researching, and sometimes enough is enough, and you need to just publish it and accept that maybe in 2 or 3 years you'll go back and do a second edition. Um, but if you write if you write endlessly and you edit endlessly, you'll never get your book published, and you may be depriving the world of some very valuable information or a valuable story. And so I think the biggest thing is just accepting that we're human, and we will never write a perfect piece of art.
What is the most rewarding aspect of being an author?
I think having a little boy tell you that he is eagerly waiting the next book, that is very rewarding.
Before we go on, thank you, Listen Notes, for my latest listen score of 26 and belong to 10% popular show globally. And of course, FeedSpot, thank you for being on the number 7 best art book podcast need to be followed this 2023. Thank you so much. And for my 144 countries listening to this podcast, thank you so much. If you go back and give advice to yourself when you were first starting out as a writer, what would it be?
Um, don't try writing a novel when you're 13, a full size novel when you're 13. Just stick to short stories, um, because I think it's actually harder to write a enjoyable short story than a full size novel, because with a full size novel you have more time to develop characters, more time to develop the plot. Whereas with fiction, you need to get it done and over with in less than 10,000 words. Um, and it needs to work. It needs to flow well. Um, and so I would say write hundreds of short stories instead of trying spending 5 years trying to write a a novel. Um, that would be my advice.
Well done, Mr. Bornman. So, how do you feel about the current state of publishing industry, especially with the rise of self-publishing and digital platforms?
So, yeah, my book is self published. I really think that self publishing makes it easy. I did try to get it published with a regular publisher, um, but I could not get any responses. Maybe it was my poor pitch letter. Maybe it was you know, poor. I'm a new author. I don't know what I'm doing. I probably made some mistakes when it came to pitching it to editors, um, and that probably makes it harder for a new author to get in. And everything I read said new authors are going to really struggle to get into um, to get published by a publishing house. So I decided to hire my own editor, my own proofreader, and had them go through my book with a red pen and mark everything that they saw as wrong, and then I'd review it. Um, and so I paid for professional proofreading, and then I went and self published, and I really think that that is the fastest way, and the easiest way to get a book done. But you do have the stigma against you of it's a self published book, because there's kind of this thought that self published books are poor quality, they're done in a hurry, they are written by new authors who don't know what they're doing. And so I think that you have to overcome that a little bit. But I think that as more people uh, go the self-publishing route, um, that it'll become less of a problem. Um, and the royalties that Amazon provides are plenty good enough for me, um, assuming I actually sell books. So I need to get on more podcasts and promote it as I'm doing today.
Okay, so what books or authors are you currently reading or recommend?
So in in terms of theology, I'm reading the Bible. I am reading some of Philip Kaiser's books, especially his book on infant baptism currently. And that is a very good book. It's very intellectual. When it comes to fiction, I highly recommend the Lord of the Rings series. The not just the trilogy, but also The Hobbit. That is a The Hobbit was actually written as a children's book originally, but many people see it as enjoyable for adults as well. And and I like C.S. Lewis's space trilogy, and especially the third book, which is titled That Hideous Strength.
Interesting array of books, Mr. Samuel Bornman. And people, if you are reading the Bible or the Old Testament, I recommended read Esther. It's one of a kind story in the Old
Yes.
Testament. It's something else that give your faith boost. Highly recommended. Esther, people.
I see Esther as almost a comedy in the Bible.
Yes, it give comedy in the Bible. So, Mr. Samuel Borman, can you please invite our listeners to buy your debut fantasy novel of Wizard and Warriors, A Tale of Enyaw?
Yes, please buy my book. It's on Amazon as a print copy for $15 and a ebook for $4.99. You can find it by searching for Of Wizards and Warriors, and also adding my name, Samuel Bornman, Bornman, or you can go to my personal website, samuelbornman.com. Again, that's Bornman.com, samuelbornman.com. And if you go to my website, you will find a sign up form for my newsletter. I'm trying to build that so that I can let people know when my next book is coming out, how my writing process is going. And also, when you sign up at my website, you will receive a free short story written by me. And it is about a young boy in the modern world who is constantly uh, bothered by dragons at night, and his parents think that they are dreams or psychological uh, uh, problems. So check it out at samuelbornman.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Samuel Borman because if you support him, more books to come. Let's support in the authors because they need to be supported in pursue for their writing to get there have more boost to write more books. So, Mr. Samuel Bornman, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me on, Mr. Lucas. I really appreciate it.
Thank you and God bless.
God bless you too. You have a nice day.
Bodycam people, see you soon.